you have to differentiate yourself and really become a person of interest and take a stance or really niche down on who you want to serve. I actually created a little acronym called COHOST. Number one, the C starts for creating awareness. The O starts for opening the conversation. And then the H stands for holding discovery. And then the O stands for offering a solution. S stands for signing that contract. And then the T stands for taking over. But today we're going to be talking about your offer. And so the reason I wanted to talk about this week is because I was doing some private trainings, some one-on-ones last week with some folks. And one person had, I think, 3 properties. One person had 15 properties. Both of them wanted to grow. And they were like, I really don't feel like people are wanting to make a change this summer. I don't know why. Maybe because it's summertime and people have bookings. And it got me thinking, it's kind of the opposite of the conversations I'm having. I think the traditional vacation rental markets right now are struggling, and the traditional vacation homes are struggling due to just the overall increase in supply. There's been over 600,000 properties that have been added on Airbnb over the last 5 years. And, the ones that are crushing it are the ones that have invested in the amenities, have done a redesign, have all the top tier amenities in their market. And they don't need to be a massive house. They could be just a simple 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom place. But a lot of owners are struggling right now. And I wouldn't say as much like the revenue's gone down a ton, but what's really concerning for the homeowners is, especially in the beach markets, they're used to being booked all summer long. Like they're used to being booked June, July, and August in like January, right? That's just kind of how these beach markets went. And they're used to making all of their money in those 3 months. And so when they're sitting here June 19th and they don't have any bookings for August, which is in a lot of markets, they start to question, hey, what's going on, right? And I think people, are still getting bookings. I've seen for my markets specifically, we're about 15% decrease in booking windows, meaning people are booking a lot slower and not booking as far out for August and even for July. July is a little bit different. It's like where most people travel, obviously, because Independence Day, but they're really waiting to book. And we're still hanging on to our rates. So we're not dropping our pricing as fast. And that's one tip I'll give everybody too on the revenue management right now. Do not drop your pricing so fast right now. I was at like a 20% gradual decrease. I think it was like a month out for pricing for some of my properties. And I dropped that to like 8%. And I've still been getting booked. I'm still at occupancy rates as good, if not better than last year. But I'm not getting booked at those low rate prices that Price Labs kind of automatically, gets you into as the booking window gets smaller and smaller. So side note, don't drop your prices as fast right now, especially for these summer baits, because you're still going to get booked. In most markets, but a lot of it's market dependent. So the homeowners are feeling the pain right now. And, I think right now, a lot of them aren't going to, even if you took over a property, and signed a contract today, you're going to start in the off season, but really you're going to have 2 sales. And your sale number 1 is going to be getting that contract. And I'm going to talk about your offer, but sale number 2 is going to be getting them to invest into the property and invest for the reasons of making the revenue higher and getting a return on investment inside of what investments that they make. So one of the first issues I'm seeing is people saying, I'm just going to do it better than them because I'm smaller, right? I'm more boutique. My company only has 20 properties, 30 properties, 5 properties. And we're talking to, these people who have property managers, maybe have had the same property manager for the last 10 years. And this big vacation rental property managers have hundreds of properties, right? There's still some risk, and they still see some risk of like, hey, this newer player that I'm talking to, like things sound good. But the big vacation rental managers, I know them. Like, yeah, my bookings may be a little bit down for August, but they got a big staff. They think it may be a little bit risky. And the core thing that I want to talk about today is you have to differentiate yourself and really become a person of interest and take a stance or really niche down on who you want to serve. So I see so many different people that, will take on all these types of properties, right? They'll take on condos, they'll take on big houses. They just don't really care. They just want a deal, which I think is fine, especially when you're first starting out. But it's harder to get a deal and get a new contract when you don't hyper focus on who you want to serve and the types of properties you want to serve. That is the number one thing that you need to focus on. I'm going to show you guys how to do this in a little bit. But, do you want to serve, beach properties that are themed out really well, or maybe it's dog friendly properties, or maybe it's only lakefront properties, or maybe it's only beachfront properties. Like whatever that niche is that you want to focus on, you have to specialize yourself in that niche. So, who owns dog friendly types of properties? Where do those people hang out? What do they care about? What are those plus ones that you can offer? Whether it's, dog beds that are cleaned every single time, or maybe it's dog treats that are grain free, or, maybe it's those like extra plus ones that your company is going to focus on. Beachfront properties, for instance. I was talking to Buck Combo about this last week on his podcast. Putting together a quarterly maintenance plan for beachfront properties because they get beat up by the salt air, right? So what does that maintenance plan look like? Do you have a hurricane prep service? Do you have some sort of service that does inspections every quarter? Because one of the big pains that I hear a lot of people that are with those big property managers, the Vacasas of the world, the owners complain about things getting broken, things getting stolen, and then them not knowing anything about it. So if you're managing a $2 million plus, beachfront property, and there's things that are getting broken all the time, and then when the homeowner shows up and the stove is broken or some of the knobs are missing on the stove, they're going to show up and be like, what the heck? Right? So showing them and diving into those pains and really getting clear on, like, just doing market research on what types of properties that you want to serve and niching down on those. Maybe it's you offer a pool cleaning service because you only want to work with properties that have a pool and you're in Florida. Maybe it's, a Disney theme. Maybe you're a property manager down in Orlando and you want to focus on Disney themed properties or something like that, or really themed out properties. Maybe you offer, some sort of Mickey Mouse, like mascot type of session or something for potential guests. Like what are those plus ones that are going to differentiate yourself from those big property managers? And so one of the things that I would recommend you doing, and I'm going to share with you and share my screen on how to do this, is actually what Buck recommended last week. How many people use ChatGPT on a weekly basis? And it can be for all sorts of different things. E and I actually just did a podcast on 10 different use cases, 10 different ways that we use ChatGPT in our business to help us solve problems. This is just regular ChatGPT. I didn't create any custom GPT or anything like that for this. And I said, think like as Alex Hormozi in his book, $100 million offer, and help me figure out my new offer for my short-term rental management business. And it broke out a little framework for me and basically said, number one, you need to solve a painful problem. Number two, that is impossible to ignore. Number three, it feels like a no-brainer offer. And number four, increases value, decreases risk, and shortens time to result. So it spit out a whole bunch of jargon that, basically summarizes Alex Hormozi's book, which is fine. Summarizes the no-brainer offer. If you haven't read this book, this is a great little summary. But what I did after that is I asked it, all right, I'm selling to homeowners that have great properties with 100K or more potential, but they're stuck with the bigger ancient property management companies. They're tired of not getting personalized care. Their properties typically haven't been invested in a long time. Their properties are damaged and not maintained well. However, they're scared to change property management companies because there's a lot of unknowns. They don't want to lose even more money. And I said, their dream is to increase their revenue and not have to worry about their property getting banged up. And so it did a little bit of market research and then put together some of the pains, some of the dreams, and then put together an irresistible STR takeover transformation offer. And this is really using some marketing jargon here, but I think it's actually a really good exercise to go through because you can look at what you're saying to current people right now, current prospects, and then just give it a good spin and give you some different ideas that'll get you thinking a little bit differently, right? So what he talks about as well is breaking down what your offer is. So do you have a name for your offer, or is it just your management company, right? I don't. I don't have an offer. It's just, hey, you want to work with me or not? And I think that probably some of that comes from like my sales process, my discovery. I do a lot of this stuff, I guess, subconsciously and not like naming different offers, but I like how they named the STR takeover transformation. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go through my STR takeover transformation process. And what that's going to entail is a revenue optimization system, so that'll increase your nightly rate and occupancy. None of the big vacation managers have anything like this, right? We're going to go through and audit the wear and tear and put a fixed plan together for some of the things that are in your home as well. And one of the big things here is going through an audit of what's working and what's not, and how much potential that your property can make. And one of the other things, I think I said it down here too. Looks like I didn't, is even putting together some sort of offer where you invest in their property. Maybe it's $1,000. Maybe if you've got extra cash and you want to invest in that property, you think it's a really good property. Let's say it's like 20 grand or 30 grand or something like that. Your return on investment may come from their owner payout, or you charge them interest on that. And if they really don't want to invest in the property, you can tell them, hey, I feel so confident about this property doing really well. I'll put my own cash in to get the hot tub, to get the sauna. You just pay me a little bit of interest and then pay me back based on the owner statements, right? Put together a return on investment of like 2-3 months. That is a killer offer if you have some cash laying around. It's a killer offer for you because you just landed a really, really nice property that's going to do 200, maybe 300K or more. And then it's a no-brainer offer for them because they're just paying a little bit of interest. You do all the work and they get to make more money as well. So what are those win-win scenarios that you can put together? And maybe it's you partner with somebody that can give them the money to do that. Maybe you're actually putting together a free design service or something like that, or a scope of work that, typically costs $10,000 for you to do this scope of work, but you got it so dialed in that you'll give it to them for free. And they just have to execute on purchasing X, Y, and Z in order to hit, those higher income numbers. So what are those plus ones? What are those services? Maybe it's a full service, onboarding that only takes 7 days, right? If they're worried about how long this transition is going to be, just tell them it's a 7-day transition plan, or put together some sort of 7-day transition plan. Like, what are their pains that they currently have? A lot of it's going to be marketing too, right? Listing rebuild, professional photos. Maybe you take care of that for them as well, to make sure that you're standing out and you take control of that too. I've seen people take over new listings and, the owner doesn't want to invest in new photos. That's a red flag in my opinion, but you also didn't sell that hard enough too. So that is, some of the things that you can do to at least differentiate yourself based on your niche, right? Differentiate yourself from the folks that are doing this and have been doing this for a long time for them. And then, do you want to put in some sort of guarantee? I just had one of my Instagram reels. I was talking to Mike in person, and Danny was catching some of the video. But I talk about my 5-star guarantee. So for some of my properties, I've got a 5-star guarantee where if we don't get a 5-star or the guest does not leave a review, we don't get commission. So if they leave a 4-star or less, or anything less than a 5-star, we don't take a commission on that stay. And it could be a $2,000 commission. It could be a $200 commission. We don't get paid unless we get a 5-star or the guest doesn't leave a review, right? So what are those guarantees that are going to differentiate yourself from everybody else? Guarantee number 1 could be, if we don't increase your net revenue in the next 90 days, we'll manage your property for free for a month. A full transition plan in 7 days, or we'll give you $500 towards your next mortgage payment. It's not bad. Maybe it's, you manage the property for the first month free, or maybe you manage the first 3 months for 20% instead of 25%. what are some of those things that are going to be, perceived very high by the owner? And you may have to test some of this stuff too, but some of the things that are going to be perceived very high from the owner that are also low risk for you. Maybe it's a 90-day guarantee. If you're not happy within the first 90 days, like we'll help you transition back to the old guys. We'll help you do it. We're so confident in that. Right. So no hard feelings, no penalties, anything like that. You can also do like an offer stack. I know Alex Hormozi's big on that. Like, here's all the different things that you're going to get. Here's how much all that stuff, normally costs. It's actually going to cost you $0 up front and then only 20% when we deliver. Right. So it's just framing these things up a little bit differently, framing up your offer. So it's just the perception of value is a lot higher instead of here's our contract, all this stuff, blah, 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 20%, read the contract. No, present it like this. Present your offer differently, niche down, know who you want to serve too, because you can't serve everybody. You can't serve a 1-bedroom condo and a 9-bedroom, beachfront place the same way. It's impossible. You can't scale well that way, especially at the beginning, right? So Alex also talks about putting together some sort of offer statement as well. This is what I call kind of the elevator pitch, offer statement, elevator pitch, one of the own, and that's it. That's really how we use ChatGPT. And you can also customize this too. So, can you customize this for properties that maybe focus on wellness and see what differences it spits out. So let's see, the wellness STR revival. Yeah. What do they want? Higher revenue without attracting rowdy crowds. So maybe this house or, a lot of houses in the Scottsdale, Arizona area are beat up and tired of, rowdy guests and they want more of a wellness retreat. I'm just trying to think. Maybe there's some like Mardi Gras places in New Orleans where we can transition some of them from Mardi Gras houses to, wellness type of places. So like putting in a guest alignment protocol, a wellness first listing rebuild, a sacred space plan, right? Adding some in-home touches, designing the house, doing the design for more wellness type of focused stays. So thinking about, hey, what's that next niche? What are some of the trends that we're seeing in specific markets or what's working in other markets that maybe we can take to our market here? It really helps you get a better alignment with what you want to do and how to differentiate yourself from the competition. So I hope that was helpful, guys. I know we got about 20 minutes so far now. What questions do you guys have? I think this is super, super powerful to be able to recraft your offer and niche down and just make it more attractive to potential owners, and exactly what your plan would be. So I want to also give a little sneak peek into something. I'm going to be presenting this at WealthCon as well. But, I've really thought about my company, NC Stays, and our sales funnel and what that sales funnel looks like. And, the place it starts is obviously creating awareness. So I actually created a little acronym called COHOST. And that is my sales funnel, my acronym. And number one, the C starts for creating awareness. The O starts for opening the conversation, right? So creating awareness is like making social media posts, maybe doing some UI method texts, just building up, letting people know about what NC Stays does, right? And then O is opening up that conversation, which is actually engaging with a potential lead or maybe engaging with, somebody in your preferred network, like a real estate agent, that sort of thing, opening up the conversation, telling them about what you do as well, qualifying them a little bit. And then the H stands for holding discovery. So holding that discovery call, figuring out what the prospect's pain points are, whether it's they got a damaged property or, maybe they got the revenue went from 100K to 50K, like whatever those pains are, that's where you hold that discovery and you become a doctor and just try and figure out what are their pains and how can I help them? And then the O stands for offering a solution, what your offer is here. And you want to, offer the solution based on the discovery, based on their pains, And then S stands for signing that contract. So what happens at that sign of contract, what all that's going to entail. That also really starts with like the onboarding process and like how you're going to design the property or whatever those next steps were that you guys agreed on. And then the T in co-host stands for taking over and like doing the onboarding, with the homeowner. So co-host is that sales funnel if you think about it. And I'm working on a graphic for you guys. But this is really this the O, right? It's the offer. And it's where I would say most people lose out on because they're not differentiating themselves. And maybe the sales cycles get a little bit longer because they're not creating urgency or creating enough desire to have someone decide, hey, all right, it's June, but in September, I'm going to move everything over to NC Stays or move everything over to your company because you guys are so different that I want to work with you guys. So use ChatGPT to figure out what your offer is, how you want to differentiate yourself, maybe how just throw in what you're doing now to do that, or maybe even throw in, you could throw in a couple recordings of calls that you've done into ChatGPT and say, hey, how is my offer? How can I differentiate it? How can I do better next time? Use it as a tool. It's not an end all be all. It's a, really a thought provoking exercise for you to figure out where are some of the gaps in your offer and how you can, I've said differentiate a million times today, how you can differentiate from the other competitors that are out there, especially the big boys. So I hope that was helpful, guys. I don't have anything to give away. Actually, you know what? I can give away the prompts, Sylvia. So if you guys want the prompts for ChatGPT, just drop prompt in the comments, and I'll shoot you a DM of the prompts that I gave ChatGPT in order to get the output. And again, you're going to want to craft it to who you want to serve and who your ideal client is, what your ideal stay looks like, whether it's a wellness retreat or maybe bridesmaids or bachelor parties, bachelorette parties. Maybe you want to focus on, family groups. Maybe you want to focus on, kids or really whatever it is, dog friendly. Just drop prompt in the comments and I will send that over to you guys. And hopefully you guys can take that and take action and differentiate yourself from the big boys. Because again, I know I've said this a million times too. Airbnb gets a bad rep in our cities, in our states, in our counties, in our HOAs. And I believe it is because these big box property managers that have hundreds of properties and don't care about being good neighbors and don't care about the neighborhoods or, what the guests are doing. And so HOAs, cities, states, they're regulating us left and right because of this. One of my neighborhoods decided November 2023, overnight, they said, hey guys, no more short-term rentals in January. So 2 months from then, about half my income, my household income was from that one neighborhood that in 2 months was going to go to zero. And all because of two bad homes. It was two bad homes that were, one was managed by Evolve, one was managed by Vacasa. And they were problem houses. And the HOA was like, hey, no more. We can't do this anymore. There was about 68 others. So 68 of us got together. We all sued and ended up coming together to an agreement with the HOA to rent out for another 10 years. And it's unfortunate. I wanted to do it forever. I don't have to. I think we figured that out. We're getting properties in other areas. We don't take on a lot of properties in HOAs anymore. But it's just it's a prime example of the companies like NC Stays, my company, the folks that are watching this, Kathy, I know, Tyler, Sylvia, Al, we're all building businesses that are boutique, that we care about the guest. We're not going to have hundreds of properties, right? Chris has 100 or so, but he's got a big team helping and he does pre-stay checks and he knows every single owner personally, right? You get too big, you get over 150, 200 units. It's just, it's quality control is really, really hard, especially if your properties are very dispersed and his are very concentrated, right? So we have to work together to build our businesses, our companies to make Airbnb's reputation great again, right? I know it's cliche, but I think we can, and I see it happening. I mean, we've got over 2,700 properties that are managed inside of STR Secrets, and you know, well over 100 people that have six-figure businesses that are doing really, really well. They're taking properties from Vacasa and Evolve and the big property managers left and right. But again, it all starts with getting out there, creating awareness, telling people about your business, and providing a really, really good service. So appreciate everybody. If you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot me a direct message here on Facebook. I'm very active on Messenger, so shoot me a message if you guys have questions. If you're interested in learning more about STR Secrets too, shoot me a message. We can chat about that. We're changing some things up over the next really month or two. We're going to be doing a lot more live events. Also adding in a lot more AI capabilities too. So it's going to be pretty cool. We might see like a Mike Riley and Chris Petsy chatbot in the future to help answer some questions really, really fast. That'd be pretty cool. But plus a lot more cool stuff too. SOP playbook, all done for you, software. It's cool stuff. Anyways, hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and we'll see you guys next week.